that we understand that our battles will also be fought in spaces much like this one. In our classrooms and at our jobs, we fight racism and reactionary thought with conversations much like this one. I know that the struggle to develop a revolutionary consciousness among members of our class can be time-consuming, difficult, and laborious, but it is a necessary task. Some would say Google is free, but most of the time I say if it's free, it's for me. But I don't know about y'all, but I don't necessarily trust Google's racist, sexist, backwards algorithms to teach people how to be allies. And besides, I don't need more allies, I need comrades. I don't need allyship rooted in feel-good altruism. I need comrades who understand the struggle for freedom for others as a struggle for their own freedom. I need cis comrades who understand the struggle for trans liberation as tied to their own. I need white comrades to struggle against the system of white supremacy, which attempts to strip us both of our humanity. In this moment, we need a culture of radical solidarity. So yeah, I'll open up the floor to questions, comments, concerns.
You brought something to mind. I attended a Black Lives Matter rally here, maybe back in November. And the majority, just listening to the conversation, there's something I realized a long time ago, and you just hit on it, that, you always hear how racism affected black people. But you never hear, or I've never heard, how racism has affected white people. And white people need to know that we're not the only ones that racism and
it doesn't
slavery
work in one direction.
affected. It affected white people just as much in different ways, but it affected the psyche also. And until that has to be recognized, that's really what puts us all in this together. Because if when you separate it, then you're saying, well, you were affected, okay? I wasn't born yet. I wasn't there. I didn't have nothing to do with it. But the same way it has affected the slavery of my ancestors have affected the psyche, the mentality of my entire family, like it has everyone else's. But it also has yours as well.
Right.
So we will both, the only way we can win is that we both have to find how to heal from that. And ignoring it is not the way. We've already done that. And the same thing you've said, I heard in my Black Panther rallies when I was 19 years old. And everybody said that I was crazy because I didn't understand why we didn't have a revolution then. So you can imagine how I feel now.
Three letters, CIA.
Yeah. Well,
I think you raised an important part because, people talk about intergenerational trauma, and I heard someone mention that phrase earlier, and it's, something that people of color carry with them, but then, if that's the intergenerational thing that people of color carry, what is the intergenerational thing that, white folks carry? And I say it's sociopathy, like an internal culture of sociopathy. I mean, the fact that, we can have videos of black people's murder go viral, right? There's really a sort of detachment from the value of life in the overall WASP, white Anglo-Saxon culture, that we can have videos of Syrian children washed up ashore dead, right? These same images of white death don't exist, right? So it's a real detachment from life in all its forms, I think. And that is an intergenerational trauma of this construction of whiteness in this country. I'm not going to say whiteness, but this construction of what is white. So yeah, I think there's definitely some detachment from life that gets carried along in this construction of whiteness. So.
Was the action to tear down the statue spontaneous after Charlottesville, or had there been discussion and talk about doing it, and that was finally the last straw?
So I think coming out of Charlottesville in Durham, because from Durham to Charlottesville, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like a 2.5-hour drive, or is it more than that? About 4?
Yeah.
It's a 4-hour drive. So a lot of people could have made that in one day. And a lot of people were feeling guilty and feeling regret, so of like what could have been if I was there, or, you know, and then also because Charlottesville is only 4 hours away, we did have a lot of comrades from Durham go to Charlottesville. So a lot of folks came back, so it was a mix of people feeling deflated and defeated from going to Charlottesville, and like physically not feeling well, being beaten up by Nazis. I mean, I know people who were like struck across the head with poles. So it was just that combination of like people feeling guilt from not going and people feeling defeated from going to Charlottesville. And I think people came back, and that, so the car incident happened on Saturday. On Sunday in Durham, there was a rally put on by the Indivisibles. And at that rally, it was supposed to be like a vigil. Some folks were going to have words. And for a portion of it, we were invited to speak up. When I say we, I'm talking about some folks who had went to Charlottesville. So we get up there, we go along with the program, but we had some objections to some of the rhetoric that was being put out there by the Indivisibles. So what they wanted to do at this rally was to open up by, with a moment of silence, and open up with singing Our Land. This land is your land, this land is our land. Which is, I respect the origins, because during the civil rights struggle and the anti-war movement, that was a very important song and a popular song. And but I think nowadays it's been kind of twisted and distorted. So a lot of folks my age consider that song with regard to the flag and these toxic ideas of patriotism. And not only that, but to go ahead and sing a song that's like, this land is our land. You know, just 2 days ago, you know, in Charlottesville, Nazis were chanting blood and soil. So it's a similar kind of rhetoric, twisted in this liberal kind of way. Similar rhetoric though, so we had objections to that. And a comrade wanted to speak on the mic. Within seconds, they were trying to snatch the mic. They threatened to call the police. This is a black person we're talking about, threatening to call the police on someone who wanted to have some words and have some objections about, you know, the rhetoric that was being put forward. So the next day, Monday, was the action where the statue actually came down. I think folks there just wanted to have something more real and tangible, something material that people could walk away from the summer and say, like, you know, the Nazis did not win, right? So I think it was pretty spontaneous. I think that would have to be my answer. It was, I don't think that could have happened without what happened in Charlottesville, and I don't think it could have happened without middle of the road pacification that we saw with that Indivisibles rally on Sunday. And folks just needed something more real, so.
Have you heard of law enforcement agencies actually working with the groups that came, the Nazi group, you know, the supremacist groups there, in order to protect them?
Yes,
or
actually, yeah,
with their agenda or whatever? But yeah, can you speak a little bit more about that?
It's not surprising because, you know, the cops are just the legal face of the Klan, right, historically. And I don't just mean that like figuratively, like the cops are the Klan. I mean that like quite literally. And I mean, even to this day, there's evidence that cops have been collaborating with right-wing groups to recruit. So that's not surprising at all. The cops are the Klan, right? You know, the popular chant is cops and Klans go hand in hand, but the cops are the Klan. When they're not being your judges and your lawyers and your policemen, they put on the hoods. So yeah, I've definitely heard about that. I think to most it's disturbing. I think to like, you know, regular, I don't know, folks, you know, that would be a disturbing thing to find out. But I think once you once you've been organizing for a while, you begin to see the clear connections, and I think that's true for people who come into this work through organizing, but I think people who are born into this work because of their social class, and we were talking about earlier how race is more of like a caste system than a class. People who are born into this work obviously have a different perspective of the collaboration between the state and their extrajudicial arm. But yeah, it's not surprising, I
How
think.
do we hold them accountable?
The police?
Yeah.
I think the first step we can do is, first we have to build a consciousness within the masses to understand the problem. For example, I remember a few years ago, there was this big body camera debate, which was a start, but, and I think even the reform struggle is important, because through the reform struggle, I think more people can begin to realize that reform is not the key. So the reform struggle is important, and I think even in open up the door with talking about the body camera issue. Okay, so we have the body camera issue, and now we can really delve into that, right? Once people come with these kind of reformist ideas, now we can address the issue of body cameras. The issue is the police have access to it first. There's like a plethora of issues, right? And our problems with it is that the police have access first. So now they can write their police report around the video. So there's that. There's also ways that they can seal access to the body cameras. We also know that body cameras are a way to surveil you and I, right? Because they're pointed out at the public all day. So there's a plethora of problems with body cameras, and I think that is one way that we can begin to start holding them accountable, is through reform struggle, with the understanding that that's not the end goal. So I think community policing, these initiatives that they have in Chicago for community control of the police is an important start. Like I said, getting people involved in reform work, so that you can have the masses behind a more, I guess, revolutionary understanding, to push that understanding from a reformist understanding to a revolutionary understanding can be through reform struggle. And I think initiatives for community control of the police, initiatives for body cameras, or whatever it may be in that city, because again, different areas of the country are just politically in a different place, right? While other parts of the country were pushing for body cameras, for example, in LA, they had tried that years ago, and we know that the LAPD is like the most vicious and the most brutal up there with the NYPD. So, and different parts of the country were pushing for body cameras. So I think it's all about assessing where the community is in the reform struggle, and using the reform struggle as a way to increase scrutiny on this state system. Yeah.
I could, if anybody wants to talk after about Charlottesville and how it's literally just, every question that you all have about, like, is this real, does this really happen, we're like living proof of it, but I'm not gonna hide that. I just want to, I will say, Charlottesville paints itself as this like really liberal town, and part of like what we fight against is this idea that like being liberal is inherently against white supremacy, when it's not. And so the government is liberal, you know, the chief of police is a black man, right? And yet that chief of police openly admitted to us that he thought that the Ku Klux Klan were going to be less violent than protesters were. So you're not just talking about like diversity here, you're talking about people who really are contributing to a system that upholds a certain power struggle. And so, you know, people need to be woke to the fact that just because you have a government that says it's going to protect you because you're liberal, or because you have Democrats, or you have a chief of police who looks just like you, doesn't mean that they're gonna be for you or any of your struggle at all. And we saw that with the KKK. I mean, they gassed us, and like they had no. The chief of police was quoted, or the interim police was quoted as, "Yeah, I gassed them. What else did you think I was gonna do?" I mean, I had a panic attack on the sidewalk. There's like videos of me after being assaulted by a cop, and a cop looks over at me and he says, "We're gonna gas you if you don't move in 10 seconds." And the people who were helping me said, "She can't move, she's basically paralyzed with fear," and they threw a canister right next to my foot. So, I mean, and I'm white, right? So, like that, the Charlottesville is